All right. Welcome everybody to presumably day 37 after a very long break, other than the joints rant and a lot of patron work. Someone is telling me 37 is the last on YouTube, so this might be welcome to episode 38. I will need to check. Um, but anyway, welcome to the comeback, I guess. So it's been a while. It's been a while for me, and the channel still gets new people that start from scratch every day. So if you're watching these, you know, um, a long time after it's been recorded, maybe you're going through things back to back and you remember exactly what we were doing until not long ago in your view of things. But I have been off the stream for a fair bit, few months now. So I thought that for those that are kind of following in real time or close to, and for myself, we would re-acknowledge the scene and what we're doing and move on to the next stage. So by my recollection, whether it's actually valid or not, I think we were at the point where the whole rig was actually guidable just fine. So you could move the lot, and there's a handful of things missing possibly that I need to look at. But the thing is basically working. The up vector is possibly not respecting the guide, but the whole rig, as far as I know, should be guidable. I had exported all the components, and they seem to come back in good order. There might need to be work to do or whatever. But we're at the point where it feels like the greatest part of the work is done, and even the guides are connected between each other appropriately. And then the other thing that did happen is there's a plugin, and that's available on the Code of Rig GitHub, to swap the guides in and out. So right now the guide will shape a rig. And do I want... Yep, okay. So the guides will shape the rig, and if we swap without deleting the guides or anything like that, they will stop controlling the rig. So the guides being the meta rig that configure the components around. So that seems to work. The swap back seems to work now. It's a little bit dodgy doing, the swap back. Maybe we just broke something, who knows. But we'll figure it out. And undo also seemed to work just fine for the guides. So I'm not gonna reset this scene. I've imported some geo that I had put together a long time ago. I think like we've probably been delaying these for too long, but fitting guides to some geo is actually a pretty good test for whether you're doing things right or not. Now you should be able to fit stuff to anything despite a massive difference in scale without much trouble. The thing is, we don't have anything to resize the manipulation shapes yet, so that might mean that we don't want to do too much manual work. So I might actually rescale these. So let's see. Yeah, stuff is centered around this is body mass. So I might actually rescale these a little bit so that I don't have to redo all the icons basically. Now let's see, and I don't want them to fit exactly to where we had the rig. It's also been a long time since I've used Maya, so we'll see how that goes. But let's say something like that, just to fit the guides size wise, and then we'll move things around that we need to move around, and hopefully that makes sense as a game plan. So thank you. Now surprisingly, I still sort of kind of remember how this works. Now the thing that's always driven me insane about scale is you set it to word, and what it does is it orients, like the two settings, it orients things to the word, which is cool, but there's no way to position it to the word. Now, yeah, whatever. And this keyboard is not made to use 3D apps, I can tell you that. Split keyboard and all. Anyway, let's stop complaining and let's keep doing. So, all I want Why are you not doing my bidding? All I want is to move the pivot. Okay. So, man, this looks really silly. I mean, I don't mind some silly, but this looks really, really silly as it is. So we might need to move this higher. And I was just about to say something very wrong. I'm glad I didn't. So HRC, we're gonna be moving this. All right, so we have some guiding to do. Default pivot, I think, is default. Yeah, no, default is, I think that's the actual default. So for those that don't know, insert switches you to pivot mode, which is actually one of the things that I think Maya does kind of okay. And when you're talking about manipulation, and then it responds to all the snapping. So if you hold X, you can quickly snap it to center word on the grid. It's not too bad. But I think that the default is actually center mass for the points, and the orientation is going to be whatever you set in here affects the orientation, but not all of those settings like object and so on actually affect the position of the pivot. But I might be wrong. I'll try it next time. Thank you. So, with that done, what do we want to do next? Man, the foot roll for this thing is going to be very different than what we have. I reckon that the first thing that we can do about this, and do I have my shortcuts? I'm gonna be trying. I do have my shortcuts, because I've also upgraded the Maya version to update 4, and you never know what it keeps and what it doesn't keep, but it seems to have been doing right the last few versions. So, talking of guiding now, let's go and revisit the components one by one and see what we have now. What we call the God node is actually one of the simplest, so I would like to graph things out. I've been saying for a while that I'm gonna share this scene, that I want to share a scene for these things so that people can catch up to the assets as well if they haven't been doing everything bit by bit. So the game plan is that over this stream and maybe another one will achieve that as well. So let's start organizing us some tabs. And I've been wondering, and I'm gonna blast away these old tabs. Let's be brutal about it. Talking to a friend some time ago, we're also wondering if anybody actually gets offended by the fact it's called the God node. If you're religious and it offends you that something in the scene is called God, with lowercase g nonetheless, I'm sorry. It is not meant to be disrespectful. But you gotta give it that it does control the whole rig. So, we have everything graphed here. This might be a bit much, so now the other thing we have been doing is we should have been keeping things fairly clean. So master, output, and all of that. Okay, that's not too bad. So it has no input. We did this thing where we ended up having the output as objects, which is something that I normally don't do in my own system. Like I only allow attributes, but because we're using vanilla Maya, it seems sensible enough. So let's start graphing from the output and let's see what comes into it. And yep. So output and receive and output. So it's grabbing the offset. So this all seems in good order. This might be as like this might be good as is actually. So one of the things we want to do is fit the guide to verify that everything works. And the God node DG nodes are few and far apart. The other thing we've been doing that I think we've been alright at is assetizing things so it doesn't contain itself, which is good. Oh, tasty. This is actually okay. Sorry, this is gonna be, you know, I flagged it as a chill stream, so I don't feel too guilty about it. I think it's important that I reacquaint myself with the rig, and as I said, if people have been following more or less in real time, it might be useful for other people as well. So we got the control with the offsets for each of them. We got the guide that's as expected. Okay. I think we were in a pretty okay place, and the guide is in word space. So I don't expect this to be, you know, much drama. Last famous words, maybe. But, so this is our guide there, and this is where you really wish that, you know, they did some work with the UI, like something like new core eyes or whatever, that I could draw a, you know, a background node. Do you have a comment? Like, beside compounds, I mean, compounds will be, you know, it would be amazing to be catapulted all the way to 2006 or 7 when they were a thing. I'd love to be that modern. But even like shake style comments, like making it to 2002, 2003 would be amazing. Anyway. And so we have the guide affecting the buffers for each of those. That seems in good order. Now at this point I think I know what is going on, but I'm still gonna inspect the lot in case the people watching actually want to know what is going on, instead of just me thinking to myself in my head, this is this and this is that. So I do have, so what we have is the guide is as we thought it would be, like it's a bunch of stuff in global space, so it makes it pretty easy to move things around without having to move one and then counter move the other. Then they go straight up into the buffer, so this is as simple as it gets as far as guiding components. Then that has a bunch of nodes like that, which is what you would expect. This auto scrolling, like, is there an option to turn that off? Because I forgot. Add to graph and create auto size. I forgot that feature, like I didn't remember it being a thing. Anyway, if somebody remembers where that option is for auto scrolling stuff and resetting my view, you know, that is super annoying. Let me know. I don't want to spend hours digging through menus. And in the past I said I don't like pinning. I still don't like it, but I'm sort of giving into it because it's getting ridiculous having my graphs reset all the time. So master offset, master control. Other thing that would be nice, you know, the hypergraph views had two options. You could see hierarchy and DG mode. It would be great to have, you know, these roundy Bezier connections. For this is in case anybody from Autodesk ever listens in, which at this point is probably not the case. But it would be amazing to have these, you know, spliny things, and then also seeing the hierarchy of straight lines. Because the hypergraph version of it was far too limiting. Never been a hypergraph fan, so I know some people still use it over the node editor. I don't know how they cope. Such a dated view, but hey, to each your own. So com and com offset, and this is the end offset. So this is the last one, this is the end. Okay, so that also seems in good order. Now what happens here is that for each of these, we pretty much, for the first one, we go straight to the output. Then that has to contribute because of the reparenting. We kind of want to exclude one item. We only want to get the offsets because they're supposed to work in tandem with the main controls. That means we have to re-multiply things to re-establish the hierarchy as it goes to the output. Why is this one? This is a decompose. Oh yeah, that's, yeah, fair enough. That's a decompose. Then we have another multiplication, same thing, where we are reparenting things. Let's call it that. And then finally we go to the last output. Now these are just plain nodes. So control is a hierarchy thing. Do we care to have it in the graph? Like, this is the scene that I'd like to give out. Yeah, might as well, I guess. Why not? So component, nah, this we definitely do not care for. And this is just the hierarchical output, so we're going out, as I said, you know, this is kind of unusual for me. Like, it's it's okay, like, if you do things one way, but in my case I haven't been working like this for a bit, so normally, as I said before, I would just have attributes coming out of the outputs, but in this case, vanilla Maya and all, we want to make it easy to visualize things. We're accepting that an output might be actual transforms sitting under the output node. Any Qt guru knows if one could work on top of the existing node editor? You can do some stuff, yes. I mean, ultimately, you can actually pick apart a lot of the Maya Qt and inject your own stuff into it. The problem, like with the node editor, is fairly leafy, so there's not a lot of stuff depending on it. When you deal with the timeline, actually, you can do some real damage. But I don't think, like, if what you're asking is, can you know, inject into Qt to the point of adding functionality like the background? My guess would be no. It will literally have to be a hack, and it will be a platform specific one at that, because I'd be surprised if this view was anything less than, you know, a full-fledged OpenGL view or something like that. I dubbed that this is all left to plain Qt work. So the way you draw these and all of that, it's I mean, it will be a lot of work to get Qt to behave like this, and I don't know if it will be, because one thing you gotta give the node editor is that it's actually pretty snappy with a lot of nodes and a lot of connections. It wasn't the case a long time ago. It is now. Like, I've had thousands and thousands of nodes, and it's really responsive. So drawing something in between the nodes and the background, if it is an OpenGL view, and the Qt part will give you the interaction between these, and maybe you'll be able to draw an overlay or something like that. But I don't have any very specific knowledge about it to the point where I could tell you, yeah, it's absolutely like that, don't waste your time, or, you know, or, oh yeah, it's possible. More than Qt guruship, you probably need to know. Well, you could pick it up and see it. But yeah, for other things, you can actually sort of hack Maya Qt, or you can, if you're willing to do work, there's a lot of callbacks in Maya, so you, stuff like the attribute editor, the outliner, you can do some serious work to extend them or replace them. Anyway, Chris Zerbrick actually has, I believe, a new Qt, relatively new Qt tutorial, which was about doing an outliner. I like Chris's stuff a lot. Anyway, so the God node seems in decent shape to me as is. Let's save these and let's try and guide it. So, and I think I've mentioned this before, but again, re-acknowledging thing. One of the things I like about this system is you can hide the controls and show the guide, and you know, you're kind of good to go. I like that. It saves so much time. Same for these. Like, whatever it is that people call it, you know, broken hierarchies, or I don't even know. But to me, having a good separation in here makes it so trivial to instrument your rigging. So, the guide for the ward, we're okay with it where it is. The guide for the COM, I think we called it center of mass. Not crazy about it, but it'll work. So I think we move these to 10. Let's keep somewhat round numbers. We'll have some decimals just in case. It's good practice. Now the guide end here. So there's a couple things that people will normally ask for when you have a god node, and people being animators, or you know, you through yourself if you're a rigamator and aniger. Oh man, that sounded so wrong. Animator rigger. Jesus, I can't believe that came out. So anyway, so what normally happens is that this gets put center mass and something else gets put shoulder on. But nothing prevents you from actually using these. For something like this, you will probably want your second level of control to be somewhere at the hip. So probably, I can do it probably where the legs actually intersect the body like that. And again, let's shoot for something like that. Sure, I don't want to spend an hour figuring out where to place it. So the other expectation again is if we hook the legs to the endpoint here, now we can show where they come from. Yeah, there's an offset to it because we had them there and we're offsetting them there, and that's okay. Like this is one of the reasons to do this work, is making sure that you break the guides into submission and you place them back and that everything responds as it should. Total line nodes. Yeah, someone in chat for the QT questions is pointing at Ilmil, who's that's Travis. Has done some things like IK chain with node in the node editor. That's an overlay, so you can do it. And someone did a tool to align nodes that you can also do, because you actually do get information on where these nodes are, so you can control them. When you save these things, when you save a bookmark, when you save tabs, what Maya is actually doing is it's saving a hyper layout node. And that hyper layout saves a message and a couple coordinates for each of these. As good or bad as an idea it might be, you can do it. You can control the position of nodes, and the moment you can pick up, the moment you have the positions, you have the screen position, screen coordinates, whatever, because you do have some degree of access to QT, you can always draw a frame on top of it. So you could do things like, showing relationship, say the hierarchy, one I was talking about, you could draw it as an overlay. You definitely can place nodes, you can do your own bookmarking and align tools and all of that. The part I don't know is that if you could, in example, change the background to be something other than the grid, change these so that the shading is different or the shape is different, that I don't, or drawing something between these nodes and the background. I do not believe you can do that, but again, I might be wrong. I don't know exactly how it's implemented, and I just did not have the strength to look into it. It's not fun work. Anyway, so that seems okay. That seems well behaved enough. Now the next part that we might want to look at, more so than the leg, is probably the foot global. Sorry, the leg global we called it. And I think we're scaling negatively, so we're doing reflection for the right hand side, so that's gonna be the trickier one to deal with, and we want to deal with the trickier one first. Now the foot is pretty trivial, it's just FK following a bunch of blends, but the leg global in this case is IK, so this should be non-scaled, and this probably is gonna move the leg around. Now, what I don't remember, and we're gonna try it right away, is the black box is kind of tempting, but anyway, sorry. So I was thinking to myself, is can I change? I can't. Can I? Can I change it? Is this gonna be overriding? So if I go reference for the top, this does not get inherited because it's an override, I suspect. Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work the way I wish it to work. All it would affect is this. So never mind. We do want the override, but we do want it normal selectable. Best use of adding something to the My AI is clipping. Yeah. Anyway, so what we want to verify first. Now, well, let me pin all of these in case I haven't. So, and let me save that. Now, the next thing I would like to do is put leg global leg global R. I can do it. Eventually, I will get to it and not fail. So, leg not as interesting. Leg global, very interesting. Control and guide. Now, what we want to make sure that we can do is as we move these, that the rest of the leg follows. So yes, that is very good. Okay, so leap of faith, we're gonna hide the leg. There seems to be stuff working, and we want to graph the leg global component. Now, let me see. Is it case sensitive, really? I'm surprised by that. So what I wanted to do is that, yes, it works. That is very good. It's because there's an R. So it's not case sensitive. Leg globe asterisk R will pick up the L as well because it's not case sensitive and it's finding leg globe and then the R at the end there. Fair enough. It's still pretty decent. This is so awesome. Oh, the clippy. It's in chat. I don't want to start opening links. Yeah. For those that are watching that don't get the chat because you're not following me live, the link is it's on Imgur, so it's imgur.com/gallery/capital Y 70F5, and that will show you Clippy inside Maya. Now, what I do want is ensure that we got everything contained. Then adding parameters row. So this is starting okay. I don't mind this. So the container is not containing itself. What we've done here is what I've done a number of other times. And again, one of the reasons why I use containers, there's good containment in these, so I can just right click the global container, select all items that are inside, and I will get everything that make up in isolation my leg global component. That seems in okay shape. It's missing this function curve. And that is okay because that is probably the function curve animating the roll. The other thing I was telling people is have stuff moving in your rig all the time. It will both help you see the real refresh of the rig as you work on it by the parallel graph level and all of that, as well as show you any issues with it. Too many people rig in isolation afraid that animation is going to break the rig while they're working on it. Not a great idea. It makes your work like it's just fragile work. It will be a lot more resilient if you have stuff working all the time, and you're gonna be slightly closer to the real situation when it comes to looking at what the evaluation is doing. Anyway, so now the other thing is there's nothing So this is pretty good. Yeah, this seems right. I reckon we can work with these. Now I'm just gonna bring everything in, and Maya makes... Oh, I did not want to deselect. Maya's chosen an interesting layout for us. Now we can, we can temporarily work with that. Now something I really miss from exercise, the ability to have multiple explorers, which is the equivalent of the outliner. Set them to selection, keep it stashed there, and like you could literally set it to just filter to the selection, and you could make all of your selection sets like, highly volatile selection sets like that. It is just not the same in Maya with the facilities they offer. Anyway, so this does seem to be in good shape. So the next thing we want to do, and this might actually be a lot to take for this guiding, but we're gonna give it a shot, is guiding it somewhere. So minus 1.9 seems okay. I don't care for like being super precise with the guiding, because the moment it gets weighted, like joints will introduce a fair degree of fuzziness into all of these anyway. Now the next test for our guide is actually, this is gonna be cool. So moving the heel to more or less where we want it to pivot. It's always awkward, like judging things on the grid. I suspect that, yeah, this is saying that we're at 0, but it looks like we're not. So this is off the ground somehow. Okay, so what I've done is I've inadvertently moved the global. So let's say the heel will pivot just about here. And it might not be a bad idea if you're curious, like to have things slightly off, so that they go through the ground and so on, like to a point where you can manage it at least. But in this case, what we're doing really is making sure that the component works. We're not caring about the aesthetics all that much. Now, if you remember, this is the normal behavior for these. We decided we're not gonna support arbitrary orientation of the foot, so it's always got to have an inflection. The convexity of it is always in this order. So that means that when you form, triangle that's in the wrong kind of winding, you will get this behavior, because it's just blindly looking at unsigned angles. I'm okay with that. So the moment we guide it back in place, yeah, it's gonna be fine. This is, oh man, I don't want to jinx it. I'll shut up. Let me shut up about it. So I don't know if this qualifies as OCD. Probably not. Whatever. Let's leave a wild life. Let's keep some numbers not so round. It's just, it bothers me because Maya doesn't really offer a lot of precision in the views, and I like to see the entirety of the numbers. Sorry, I'm also making sure that 0% drop frames. That's good. Audio still good. It's like no clipping or anything like that. Normally people will tell me if it does, because I had some clipping the other day. I think I fixed all of it. Chat helped me out. So this guiding is going alright. There you go. The roll seems to be okay. Oh, good. Thank you. Oh, this is still good. Do we trust things that work? I mean, we have done a fair amount of work in these, so be more comfortable with these at -2, I guess. And what is these in the Z? Whatever. Don't need it. Move there. All right. So let's do what we were doing before, which is now let's create a graph that is somewhat, informative of what we're doing. Informative, is that even a word? It might be. So what I would like here is, actually, sorry, I'm gonna quickly depart from these for just a second, because at this point our leg is gonna be all out of whack. But let's see if this guide works. Yeah, so this was the guide for the offset of the leg from the god node. We'll see if it all works after, but that's okay. Can live with that. Now the other thing I'm gonna do at some other point is, and there's a minimum, yeah, we use the, you know, a minimum lock kind of thing for the I can do it for the IK, so it's not gonna get that straight, but I'm gonna bend the geometry because this is a silly bind pose. I barely trust my own Python scripts. Oh, I might have said something and I now already lost the context of what I was saying, so I don't know if it is for me. Anyway, so this has brought in... Now the other thing is, this is 2018. I don't know if it's an update, but finally they made things that reach from the other edge of the node into the leading edge of the node have this bend to it instead of just hiding the connection. So my gut reflex was still moving this around to make sure that this was an output and not an input. But in 2018, or maybe 2018 point something, I'm on 2018.4, that is not the case anymore. So I would like, and I'm concerned, I would like this to be at 1. Why? Why so painful? I just wanted to see one input. Anyway, so this is getting the SRT from the master, which is okay. That's for the word space. Then from that, so we're gonna keep it around. From that, we're going into a couple of reparents. Now this first reparent is getting the config, which is where a lot of parameters exist, but those parameters are driven by the guide. So once the guide is disconnected, this will become constants. So that's good. Oh man, this might take a while to reorganize. Do I want to spend the time doing that? Chat, do you have an opinion? Should I spend time making it pretty? Probably. If we're trying to deliver a scene for everybody to have a look at, it might not be a bad idea. And we did say that this is going to be re-acknowledging the rig. So these, I imagine, are just decompose and decompose. Yeah. So the input is taking whatever the space of the master is, because this is like, yeah, this is for the IK. So this is going to be word space. So it's okay that it takes from these. And I believe this is the one we call master. Yeah. So I could have just selected that and it would have told me. So that's okay. We're happy with that. Leg we don't need to look at. This is painful because we need to. It's not that painful, to be honest. I mean, there's a Zen quote. Like, when things work, when you're not trying to debug something that is months and months old, it's not too bad. It's when you know, something unexpected happens, you have to debug, and you haven't worked with the thing in a long time, and you go like, oh, this is gonna be excruciatingly painful. So far so good. So we are taking the config, and from the config we're getting the offset, from that offset plus the master here, which is what makes sure that, you know, things follow around. Like in this case, I think we're neutralizing it, that's why we're getting it. We're driving the word encode buffer and the up vector control buffer. So this should be locked. Yes, that's good. Okay, now this is the painstaking part. This is the part where you go, okay, grab a bunch of stuff, pin it, you know, untangle the spaghetti mess. Two parameters. This exists for the swap guide thingy, so we can leave it out there for a little bit. Now, this is also interesting, the raw mechanics. Like, this is what we're going out with. Basically, this is the real guts of it, so might be a bit premature to sort those. These are the controls for the guide. Normally, those will be upstream of a lot of stuff, so I reckon it's worth hard time to sort those out. The two parameters are the other bit that I had in here, I believe. So that's good. I can work with that. Now what happens? See, I should write or download some online notes, because I would like just to get these. Hey, get me a column in the same order I've selected stuff. Get me that. But what happens if I try and lay out the graph? Is it gonna mess with everything? Yes. Because of course I want it to mess with everything. When I have 5, 6, 7 nodes selected, whatever it is, my desire in saying lay out the graph is that you rearrange everything on top of the nodes that are pinned. Thank you. You read my mind, Maya. Some people need a good talking to. Because either they're really successful sadists, or there might be some lessons in UX that need to be imported. And I'm not going to suggest violence, but a stern talking to might be in order here. Somebody was, yeah, I've released, I've made a massive mistake in the past. So I was doing a Patreon rewards. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do some C++. Surely I can explain these 2 or 3 concepts. You know, maybe 2 or 3 hours. Then it was like, you know, normally the Patreon rewards for the month are like 1 hour, and then mini series like will be a couple of hours, and I'll do them over 2 or 3 hours, and I'll do them over the course of, like, you know, a full quarter or something like that. And yeah, I did a C++ for beginners and Pythonistas thing, and it took me, I don't know, I probably worked on it for over 20 hours, and it came up to probably more than 20, yeah, and it came up to like 8.5 hours of content. So I was like, yeah, this is gonna be a Patreon reward. But hey, if you want it, it's $1 basically, so I think it's reasonably fair. I reckon it's worth, you know, it's worth at least $1. I wouldn't charge. I wouldn't do one of those things where people put 8 hours of material on Udemy for like $150. You know, and it's like, and you look at it and it's not really that great of content. Probably took me like 20 hours to, I don't know. Anyway, so let's reorder these. Maybe I'm stupid, you know, maybe it should be priced like that, but it doesn't seem fair when people do something quickly and then sell it for hundreds. So the up vector is its own thing. The buffer here, and that kind of chatting is good to cover me noodling nodes together. So we're gonna do a bit of the missing hierarchy-like thing. Up, where are you? Oh, sure. Yeah, go over there. It's exactly where I wanted you, a mile away from the other node that you're the parent of. No, the guide itself is probably not connected to anything, so I'm now very concerned that if I touch anything, it's gonna explode, like the layout. Anyway, so okay, so guide, it's got an up vector buffer, the up vector control, Darcy. Let's order them more or less the way they are in the outliner, which is somewhat arbitrary. I might have even manually ordered those. But you know, tidy graph, tidy rig. I don't know, does anybody say that? Heal control, basis vector. This is, I know what it does. It's kind of unintuitively named, and I don't know if it does work yet, but it's basically the one to order in the foot. So if you have feet that are splayed, which is actually how a lot of good meshes should be posed, but very few ever are, then that will be useful. It's basically giving us the general direction of where to do this solution. So in a way, it's kind of one of the two axes of the Cartesian plane that we solve the foot roll in. Bit of a mouthful there. So that's our guide sorted. Udemy content 999, always on sale for 15 bucks. Yeah, I mentioned Udemy, but actually I don't think I would ever sell on Udemy. You can look up on YouTube, like their ethics are absolutely terrible, and they give very little control to the people releasing content. Yeah, I, I will not support Udemy. Before I knew all of that, I've made the mistake to actually buy some training there. I really regret it. I really regret giving them money. They even went as far as the guy that does free training, and I don't remember if it was machine learning or Python web, and somebody literally stole all of it and put it up on Udemy, and then they eventually put it up for free. It's still there. You can still find content on Udemy that's being reported that the people publishing it, and it's there. And then what they do is they release that for free, and what it is basically it is to get them attention, so that then you go to their other courses that they did not, that they maybe in that case produce themselves, and that are not maybe to the same level of quality, and those you have to pay for. So not fond of that. Sorry, it's kind of a chatty stream. I did announce it as a chill stream, but at this point we're kind of tidying up the house. So I want these things beaten into submission. So this is the anim parameters, not yet. I want to sort out what the guide is doing first to make sure that we can re-explain it. That if somebody picks up the scene, it's gonna make sense. I think, like, it is making sense to me insofar, which is very pleasant. And I'll explain the things that I'm rearranging in a moment. Despaghetizing the graph. So I think we started from the right things. Like I was like, this is gonna be my trailing edge of the bunch that I want to reorder, and then I suspected that the guide would have been a good leading edge for it. So for a bunch of nodes where they start, where that subgraph starts and where it ends. This seems to be okay. This seems to be okay proceedings for it. So let's make some space and let's explain what is going on here. And by the way, there is some good content on Udemy. I'm not saying it's all scams and crap, but oh, that looked very dangerous. Okay, undo disconnect. Let me see. It's nobody told me, like, I should have saved a long time ago. So undo create edge and undo disconnect after. So if I undo again, undo select. Okay, that's a safe undo to get to. Oh wow! Hey Sonic. Cheers, man. Good on you. Remind me later to send you the link to the training. Sorry, somebody in chat that I know personally was saying hi. All right, so what is going on here is we sorted out our guide. That seems reasonable. The two parameters are only used for, do we have it? Yeah. The two parameters are only used for the guide swapping. So it's something that normally I would say, let's not put it into the graph, because all it does is confuse the graph enormously, because it basically handles a ton of messages. Now the guide, like we're just saying again, I'd love a comment box, but we're saying this is the guide, this is the DAG part of the guide, and we have a buffer for our, I can do it. We have a buffer for the upvector guide, and we have the upvector control. Now the buffer exists, I suspect, because normally we will want it to follow the God node, or something else for that matter. Now what is happening here is that it isn't. So I don't know if that's desirable. I think the other one was, if there's a missing connection, whereas this, which is the actual upvector control, is following there. So I've either, the guide is connected, I believe, because we saw everything moving. So there might need to be a bug to sort out. No, sorry. Yeah, this is the stuff for the for the Patreon thingy. So just making myself a note. What is it? Let global up vector buffer not following node. So the question here is whether this is desirable or not. And it could be or it couldn't be. Like, I mean, it's one of those things where you're kind of talking about interfaces, so it's almost a matter of opinion. My gut feeling is that I will actually want it to follow, to be honest. Now, the other thing is the foot has nothing funky going on for the reflection, for the mirroring, whatever you want to call it, for the negative scaling. And I'm tempted to say that it will make sense if we have a basis like this. It will make sense if, as you orient that, to change the way the foot is aligned. To me, it will make sense if the up vector followed, so that the natural resolution of everything that is global all sits on a plane. I don't know if chat agrees, but maybe that's a tiny bit of refactoring that we can do on the fly. So the other thing I'm gonna do is pin the living hell out of this before Maya decides to blast my graph into oblivion and rearrange everything. Not that it ever happened before. Save that. Do we take a vote? What would chat say? Like, if you were a rigger, because this is the guide, so this is the rig for the riggers, would you want to be able to rotate these as you do work? You know, and everything rotates, including where the up vector sits. My guess is yes, because I almost always want everything to be sitting on a plane, and then I want to, the up vector is one of the few things that I want to counter. So unless the chat like overwhelmingly votes for no, I will do that refactoring. It's only gonna take a second. So the other thing is the guide global. So I want these, the buffer for the up vector. I want to see the inputs for these, and this is set to 1, which is cool. So they got nothing driving them, which means this will be a trivial refactoring. Keep it planar easy enough to send that vector back to the center if you need it. Yeah. Why not? I mean, there's not really a strong case for not doing it. You know, what was it? Jurassic Park, was it? You were so busy figuring out if you could that you didn't try and think about whether you should. I think we should. I think we thought about it, and I think we should. Oh yeah, I need to go on another view, because who would ever want to press P in the outliner to actually parent thing when P does nothing else in there anyway? I'm ranting a lot today, am I not? I hadn't used Maya in a bit. Okay, so that is now moving things, which is cool. It should probably be at 0. Now, as these be moved, so there's an offset on these. There's a buffer here that has an offset, which you probably don't care about. So what I guess is that before, there might have been something that we were relying on to be in global space. Like, we were relying on the buffer to be in global space, who knows, and now it's the child of something. that something does have an offset. Okay, so like global guide, global control. We're cool with that. That gets us the buffer, and that gets us the position of the up vector guide. That is correctly affecting these things. So the next thing I would like to do is get these. So this is just the control, which is good. So let's start sorting. Like, this seems like a good moment to start sorting out some of the control stuff. So this is our vector control, and the buffer is almost certainly gonna be... See, this is the other thing I would really like. Like, there's a node somewhere. It's in the graph here. So if I drag that from here, there's no effect because these already has... Like, the graph already has the node in there. Because the event itself is just an add event. Like, when you drag, it goes like, yeah, sure, add it to there. But what I would like is, it doesn't matter if it's there. I would like to be able to drag here and, you know, move it from there to here, please. Again, Autodesk, if you're listening, kind of moment. So this is our up vector buffer, and this is the ankle control buffer. So why not sort out that as well? It's taking a little bit longer than I thought, so it might be a couple streams to actually sort these out. I personally don't mind it, because it's good to get back to these now. I want to pin those, and I would also like to get this set to 1. What? I thought I pinned them. So maybe I unpin them or whatever. So that's correct. That's correct. I don't get it. I'll admit to it. I don't get what happened there. So I am with those connections going out to these for sure. And those go out to these. This is where some spaghettiing comes into play. And those pull from these. So the joints part. So these are the mechanics, and they're actually doing real work. We're retaking stuff, going out to the rolled ankle. Okay, this gets a little bit involved, and this is the output, so we're okay with that being there. Maybe this is... These I don't want. I don't want to see the container in here. And someone was saying we need Cotis to infiltrate Autodesk. To be absolutely fair, Autodesk, like quite a few people in Autodesk have seen some of the videos. Autodesk does semi-regularly get in touch. They're not... Like, I give them a lot of crap, but the individuals in the company, whatever you might think of companies, like no multinational, you know, is gonna be out there to do your interest. I mean, they're made to make money. That's the whole point of the company. But there are actually quite a few people at Autodesk that are, you know, attentive, and they're certainly competent. So I give them a lot of crap, but I do go out for beers with some of them at SIGGRAPH, and they're actually very pleasant people. So yeah, this is, you know, my rant is for Maya and Autodesk, and maybe a couple people in the UX department. I might even know 1 or 2 of them. They do need to get their stuff together, but chances are that what actually happens is that they don't have the time to work on these because it just doesn't get prioritized. Too many people gave up on the node editor way too soon. And it was, you know, it was written off by the user base for a while, which is a crying shame as far as I'm concerned. Because yeah, the first couple versions were not exactly great. In fact, it was very, very painful. But it had the promise, I mean, to be better than the hypergraph from day one. I wish it got, you know, more time and resources dedicated to it. Or maybe they, you know, they just don't care. They decided, oh, we're not a, you know, high quality UX company. So I adapt it. because there's more than a handful of people in there that really care about UX. Anyway, that is chit chatty, but I wanted to untangle some nodes, so chit chatty seemed like a reasonable thing to do. So these are all SRTs. This is kind of getting untangled. I reckon that done this component, there's a UX department. I don't know if there's a UX department actually. Who knows? I mean, there's definitely a UI UX lead. I know that there are at least a couple people from Softimage that were doing really good work at Softimage that are in there. You can find the names if you wanna look for them. I'm not gonna name names here, but they're not hard to find. And they're good, man. They did some of the best stuff that was in XSI. They did some of the best stuff that is in here. I just wonder how much time they get, you know, to finish things, or at what point, you know, the user base basically has an effect on that indirectly. So I think we have enough here to explain what is going on. Now what we're doing is we do have these guides, and what we're interested in is a bunch of angles basically, so that we can set things in that direction. So by getting the length, this was distance between, we're using it to basically get a vector between different items. So we're doing two lengths, and they are between 1, 2, and 3 nodes, and they give us 1 and 2. They give us basically the two sides of the triangle. Now from those, there should be, yeah, they get used for the displacement. So the length actually gives you a single output, which is the length of that. So those get used to configure the displacement of, you know, going from here to here, then from here to here in pure length terms, right? So 1 and 2 and 2, and you will get here, then you need 2 rotations to reach here. This is the config parameters, because this is the guide. This is what allows us to do basically these, and, you know, and things lengthens and shorten based on the position and stuff. And once you don't need the guide anymore, like that length should be constant. So those things get deleted, the parameters remain set up. They remain set at the value that the guide basically set them to, and there's your constants. Now the other thing is there's a couple angle betweens, which also makes sense, which will give us the angle to do this. Like, so there's a couple angles here. Let me see. One is between the bases, I believe. Yeah, and the direction vector, which is coming from these two, so that makes sense. So we're taking 1 and 2, and by subtracting the 2, we're getting this vector. Then the basis gives us this vector. So the angle between those two is basically gonna give us this, like and let's show it again. The angle of this bone, right? The length we get from the distance between these two items. The angle here, we get that from angle between. Same for the next one, which is the second one, and that's why I was saying we're getting it unsigned. And we're only supporting one shape of the triangle, basically. We're implying the up vectoring, whatever you want to call it, which I'm cool with. Now, this is meant to negate an angle. So it's like we called it, you know, appropriately, basically. And what we're doing is like this, because Maya nodes are kind of lacking. We're taking what will normally be a blend and setting only using one of the two inputs, setting the weight of 1 to -1 so that it gets multiplied and negated. And all of this goes in the config parameters. And the config parameters then do a lot of work to inform the role itself. The toe F curve, and there should be another F curve, yeah, roll clamp. So this is to get parameters like the roll and so on, and get some behavior. Let me save that. And get some behavior that is non-linear. So instead of having many clamps, you can push the parameter through a function curve, and that will basically give you the behavior you want. So we might as well bring these up. So is this going to respond? Yes. So this one is actually establishing a linear behavior between 40 and 140, so it's working with degrees, I believe. Yeah. And saying between those values go from let me see, I will need to look at it anyway. Total function curve, yeah, okay, so this is basically clamping as well, and then the behavior is linear. And this one instead is producing heel back roll clamp. So this is producing the heel back. When we roll negatively, it's what gets the foot to do that. I would imagine it will need to be linear as well. I mean, I don't want an easy in, ease out on the rollback. And what is happening is that by having it done this way, you get clamping. Instead of having to use 2 different clamps or something like that, it just ends up simpler. I do feel that some of the values might be kind of not great, gonna say. So the Tarsi roll curve, like this is a one that I would actually expect to work this way, where you go, hey, as you foot roll, you know, you want this to go that way, then you want the second part of the foot roll to act, and then as you keep moving forward and you want the foot to straighten, you basically have to compensate for it. So this is more the kind of behavior that I would expect. The heel back with the easy in, ease out, not great, don't love it, but it's alright. So all of this stuff makes sense. I was like, man, my windows feel really weird. Yeah, that's why. So undocking the graph editor might not have been a great idea, but we are safe. For a while, like doing that while you had the node editor open used to be pretty crashy. So these are our mechanics. Node editor is only used by riggers. Probably. I don't know what the surfacing guys do, because I know the companies I've worked for recently or seen firsthand recently, and even not so recently because I was at Animal Logic for a long time, nobody really does a lot of surfacing, like putting together the shader as a network of nodes. Like in high-end film is kind of going out of Maya boundaries, or even disappearing as we go more and more towards physically plausible models, and you know, all the diffusion, reflectance, diffusion functions and so on. Like they get more and more you get more and more uber shadery kind of behavior. So anyway, so roll Tarsi, roll heel, roll tip. So these are kind of backwards, but the hierarchy works. We want to represent the hierarchy, I guess, here. And because we're going from here and then back this way, normally if you were to work with an FK the way we have it in the foot, you would expect the hierarchy to proceed in that direction, but the foot roll is usually what people call a reverse foot roll for some reason, probably because it feels like the hierarchy is directed in that way. So this is correct. This modulates the heel back. This is the unit conversion, so this modulates the heel back. This modulates the roll of the toe. This, what is this? Oh, this is a blend, is it? So I might need to look that one up, figure out what it does. Oh, roll offset. Okay. I am there now. So this is just a unit conversion, because the anim parameters that you want to give people might not necessarily be in angles. But let's have a look at that. So I think this part is okay. I probably need to pin these at this point. Cool. So, okay. In the anim parameters, we have a roll. And that roll does that. So the expectation is that our roll is what type of value? Let's see. It's an angle. So that angle is going into function curves that require a unit conversion. No, that's good. So that is going into function curves that are of UA, unit angle. So it doesn't need to have a unit conversion. and it will show you in here things like time 40 to 0, 40 to 81, the values. So that is where you go this far into this row value that could go 140 degrees or whatever it is. This is what set driven key will basically do for you. It creates one of those this far into that row, go that far, then you know as it keeps moving forward you want to actually reverse it and all of that. So I think the foot roll episode was actually pretty decent. I'm not gonna re-explain everything, but we wanted to find those again. Now I am puzzled by the fact that this is a U8, so this is a unit angle, and yet the input, okay, so I was saying it doesn't take a UC, but it does take a UC, so the input is still a float for some misguided reason. Whatever, it is just one unit conversion that we use for all of them. Let's keep it there for now. Let's not bother with it. It's just the vagaries of my ass attributes. So still good there. Now the only thing I want to do in these regards is see so that behavior, like, it actually looks alright as you roll back the angle, and in theory there's an ease in, ease out, but I can't say I'm really feeling it. So I'm gonna save these and I'm gonna try and take away, come on, is it? Wow. Oh yeah. Was that, has it crashed? Yeah, it has crashed. And I just saved. So it could have been worse. Live crash. That hadn't happened in a while. What do I want to find here? I hope I didn't have any settings or anything like that that I lost, but oh, for a second, just for a second, I was about to blow a gasket here. So it came onto the untitled one, and I was like, did he just blow away my entire graph unceremoniously? And it's like, no, it did not. Alright, live crash, but it could have happened at a worse time, and it didn't. So what I was saying, I think I still kind of have in mind what I wanted to do is like, this rollback behavior does not feel off to me, but what I want to try is heel back roll clamp. So I'm actually kind of happy with the way these are named. I gotta be honest. I am pleased with our diligence. Because, sure, dock it. I will always undock it for you. Because I could never possibly want to reopen a view the same way I did the previous time I opened it. Why would anybody ever want it? Alright, stop ranting, keep doing. So, heel back roll clamp. Now, this is only clamping the values, so probably gonna be better off as a linear. There's no reason to pay for anything else. Not that I don't know if it actually optimizes anything. I'd be surprised if it did. Yeah, behavior still seems fine, so I'm gonna keep that change. I'm gonna keep it linear because it doesn't make sense to have an ease in, ease out in something that is for the most part acting as a remapping, a linear remapping between values that then clamps. And the rest is in okay shape. So here's the thing. And this is where somebody might help me. Like, if I don't want the graph editor anymore, how do I friggin' close it without undocking it and closing the window? Because these are just the viewports that I don't care for, like the time editor and so on. What is that one? That's a hypergraph? Oh man, the tracks editor. God's unwanted gift to Maya. Anyway, if anybody knows how to get rid of that view without having to undock it and then close it, which is so silly, please let me know, because I don't. But I think I've demonstrated that I am very minimalist in my use of Maya, and I might not be an expert in all the nooks and crannies and tricks. Now, this is the component hierarchy, don't care. Mechanics, might or might not care about it. I didn't realize we're so far into reordering this graph. It's actually, it looks like it's almost done. So now this is heading this hierarchy, and of course I switch windows. So yeah, this is another thing that can drive me insane some days. It's so easy to lose the alignment. It does not get saved with the view, the alignment between the grid and your nodes. So if you like snapping, which I do, you will have to re-snap all the time. Anyway. Man, this is rant heavy today. I'm sorry for those that don't like the rants. I'm actually in a pretty good mood. I'm quite happy with how this is going. That crash could have destroyed my mood, but we had just saved. Try right-clicking on the graph editor tab. Normally to close something, let me save. To close something, you middle-click. Same as in browsers, right? So you can open a bunch of stuff, and if you want to close it, you can middle-click. Right-clicking will give you options like close tab, duplicate tab, and so on tabs. On these, you get stuff like duplicate, collapse tab group, tab direction. Like normally it's the docking for it, so maybe. So somebody in chat was saying nobody mentioned Day038, so we'll be here forever. No, we won't, because I think I've exhausted that at this point. I think I got everything I had to get off my chest when it comes to Day038. And for the record, that was the fastest tracking video I've ever had on Call to Freak. So clearly some people like a good rant. It has really good retention as well. Like lots of people saw all of it, like back to back, and it's one of the longest on the channel. So, I mean, clearly some people like the ranting. Because there was a lot of it in that video. Anyway, so I think we're for the most part done here with reordering all these things. Now this is part of the mechanics of the functionality itself. And whatever I did, cannot parent object. Okay, good. You failed to break something. So this is the ankle rest. So this is the mechanics. Very good. We explained how the whole joints rolling works. The ankle rest is actually really damn important, and it's basically where you go, okay, we solve the foot, and then there's kind of a default point where with the standard parameters, where does that ankle land? And we're interested in it, because after the foot roll, this thing will displace, and again, you can watch the foot roll episode, but what we want to get, what we do that for is you have something like this, and based on the parameters, we're interested in knowing where is this by default, and maybe the orientation as well or whatever. Because once the foot roll happens, so once these actually move, you know, by whatever amount, these end somewhere else with a very different rotation. And what we're interested in, for the most part, is actually in a foot roll, when you really think about it, is, for the most part, getting the new angles. So we're interested in getting maybe this angle, and this is clockwise, whereas Maya wants counterclockwise. So we're maybe interested in this angle, and maybe, you know, something like this angle, the way we shape the triangle. And then the other thing we're interested in is, so let's say these are alpha and beta, lowercase, uppercase, but whatever. And then what we're interested in is this displacement, because this is what the, I can do it, yes. This is what the IK really cares about. The IK, you know, wants to know where it needs to end up. And all the foot displacement, all the foot roll displacement needs to do is basically take the word control and know where the rest position, which is gonna be this, takes it. And that's where you want the, you know, kind of the IK to finish by default. And then you want to add the displacement coming from the foot roll, and that positions the end of your IK. You don't need much else. So foot roll episode, I think, covered these and why it's done this way pretty well. But with now, I'm puzzled all of it, you know, and I'd love to be able to put comments in there because it will make these graphs so much more useful. You know, the pedagogic value of the graph editor will skyrocket if we could comment things. And yeah, I don't know what I can talk about, because I do believe there were plans to do it, but I wouldn't want to be speaking out of turn. I don't know, you know, what was said in beta. I think they were talking about it at SIGGRAPH. That's why I'm mentioning it. They openly talked about it. I don't know what happened, because I would love to have it. Anyway, so I feel we're done. I feel we're done with this part. I think we've puzzled out the foot as well. Now the next thing we want to do is, so how far in we're an hour and a half. So I knew this would have been long stream. I announced it at 1.5 hours. I would like to get, you know, to know what is going on here. So the last thing I'm gonna do is have a look at why this is coming out offset. So it's reacting to the guide. I like that. It's reacting to the God node. This is not... Oh, that makes perfect sense. Because the foot roll, the foot global thing is only supposed to produce things like the displacement of the foot roll, the angles, and all of that. So it makes sense that it doesn't follow, that the guide part doesn't follow the God node. And it's producing offsets so that these, based on those offsets, can be in the right place. Which means that possibly the buffer of these is the one in the wrong place. It's receiving from a reparent. The reparent, let me see what it is. Oh, I've moved away from the mic. And that's just decompose. So we're just, oh yeah, that's SRT. So it's receiving a matrix multiplication. That is bound to be an offset. So yes, the first, if you remember, and I've done videos about that as well. There's the first one here will be the offset, and this is the input and this is the master. So we're getting the master and we want an offset of some measure. So that's okay. Which probably means that we're, whatever is creating that offset, up vector global offset, that's okay, is not working the way we want it to. So there's a buffer, because the buffer before was probably in word space. So it's now receiving something like the inverse of that. And we're using the matrix instead of the word matrix. So on a gut feeling, the buffer for this is actually gonna be tied to the God node there. So I think that it will be sufficient to simply get the word matrix and we should be done with it. Okay, I was getting stuck into some pedantic, don't want to reorganize things myself. All right, so I don't know why we were using the matrix. I'm sure it made perfect sense in the context. It might be a misconnection actually, so it might not have made perfect sense, but it probably was something to do with how I wanted the guy to behave. But we're advanced enough now in the work. Yeah, this feels appropriate. It stays in word space, so as you move the God node, it doesn't follow. But when we're guiding the God node things, oh, it's grading the master. So that also seems appropriate. I'm gonna keep it for now. It seems like reasonable behavior, so I'm gonna save these. I'm gonna pin the leg global again in case it got, whoa, it was fully pinned, so now it's fully pinned again. And I reckon we're good on these. I reckon that I was hoping to do more, but to be fair, we've done one of the trickier components. The leg might actually be trickier again, but then we're kind of done, I believe. Because the foot is going to be a triviality. Actually, let's have a look at the foot. Because that might be, you know, we might get away with very little work. How long ago? I must have been going for quite a while now. So yeah, I've been streaming. I've been recording for 1 hour 25. I reckon we can have a look at the foot. It's only like if only for 5 minutes, you know what we're up against, and then we know what's left. Sure. And the foot is actually gonna have the mirroring, so the foot has got that behavior where we want the positions. Well, it doesn't have any; it's just rotation, right? But if it had positions, which the leg does because it has both FK and IK behaviors, if it had positions, we would want them to be behaving like homogeneously, I guess. So there's no reflections, inversions, or whatever you want to call them. Whereas rotations, we want, you know, as manipulate something, you want that mirror kind of behavior. And with you, I mean the animators normally ask for it loudly and insistently, so you cave in and you do it. Now, foot R, there's not a lot of stuff labeled foot R, and have we been good? I'm tempted to say that we have been good and we have been diligent, so maybe we can do this one. It's a lot less notes than the other things we've done. So if there are any questions, please start piling them up now. Pretty much anything goes. Because I think, you know, I don't want this to take too much longer. I think we're pretty close to done here. As these come in, no, it hasn't, which is great. So now that we've done a bunch of other components, we probably know more or less how we're gonna organize these. So we're gonna get the guide and we're gonna get the controls. The guide is, wow, the guide is very little stuff. So it's only parametric work that goes in there, and it is the tool parameters for plugs to swap. We say that this is only affecting tooling, so that also reminds me that I need to test that the guiding still works with the leg global. Now this does have deform, which we did not have in the others, and that's okay. So that's our deform chapter. I'm gonna call it that. I don't know why. I like it. Let's look at what we're doing here. So that's a control. Okay, that's a control under that. So I'm kind of like gut feeling, and I don't know, I mean, this is the rig I put together. If you've been doing the same thing at home, yours might have a different feeling. But over the years, you do develop some sort of like attunement for whether, as you reorder things and you see what comes up, we don't really need the guide to it, because there's hardly any guiding going on in this, because it's a leaf component basically. It inherits everything. Anyway, you develop sort of a gut feeling for whether the spaghetti is actually looking the way you expect it to. So you kind of, I guess it's kind of like code smell. It's the same idea of like, it's not necessarily a precise concept. It's one of those things where you go like, yeah, okay, this feels right, or it doesn't feel right. And insofar, kind of what I see moving seems to be the way I would expect it to. This is like the foot thing, it only needs to grab a bunch of stuff coming from the global, from the foot roll, and have some defaults to orient it by certain angles, which are going to be transmitted by the way the global configures the base angles. So that's your base. Then it needs to get from the foot roll, you know, something like this angle and this angle in FK. And then it needs to know what the word alignment is for when you want it in IK mode, and what the leg alignment is for when you want it to be aligned to the ankle of the leg. So the difference between the two cases would be that you could have your foot going counterclockwise, your foot going that way, or possibly that way, and then don't need that, and then from that to that way, and then you could have the leg coming in like that. Something that is often asked for in my experience, you know, you have your various directions and joints going on and all of that stuff, is that sometimes people want it, let's say you have a global control that's aligned like that. Sometimes people will want this to be in IK mode, aligned that way, aligned to the global control. And sometimes if they're in full FK mode, they will want it to go, let's say that you have something like this angle here, they will want it to feel like that, right? And that's the difference between FK, whatever, you get the idea, I'm sure. That's the difference between FK and IK. So normally you get a couple of angles from the basis, you get the offset that the foot roll creates, and those give you the buffering for the FK controls, and then the top angle, if you want, for the buffer of these can either follow the orientation of whatever the leg is producing or be aligned to something in word space. Hopefully that makes sense, but this is what we were doing, I'm pretty sure. So these act as rotational offsets, and from the joints you can kind of see what is going on. So I am okay with that. That seems correct to me. Now let's finish the disentanglement. And chat has been super quiet. I'm wondering if I'm noticing. Can somebody say something in chat just so I know that I haven't lost it? Because Twitch has lost the chat before for me. But other than that, it's been good viewership. Quiet, but good viewership. So in advance, thank you for keeping me company, because this is like really painful without a... It's kind of like rubber ducking, but much better. And without the duck, it doesn't work. So I just possibly called all of chat ducks, but I mean it in a good way. Ducks are cool. So what we have here is the ankle space, and this is what I was talking about. So this is the handedness part, which is what we're still here in ankle. So chat is still synced. This is the space thing where we are basically gonna get the whole alignment, and the handedness is the trick that I've explained before. Again, the foot roll or whatever episodes, might have been after that actually, might have been later on when we're doing the whole leg thing. This is the trick, if you want, which is just matrix modes to get the mirroring behavior. I'm not gonna re-explain all of that, but it is important because we're trying to sort out things and go like, okay, this is that. And the handedness fix is because we're converting the handedness for some things that are rotational, but the positions we want fixed so that we don't get weird negative scaling. So when you look at the joints, they don't have negative scaling, but when you look at the controls, well, in global at least, they would have, in global space, they would have negative scaling there, which is what produces mirror behavior. So it's... Oh, I hope that makes sense. Anyway, there were whole episodes about that. Now, ankle space. So we want the buffer, tarsi control, and toes control. We should not have cycles. I am hoping that I don't see cycles in my own rig, otherwise I'm gonna be very upset. my self-esteem will drop drastically. So tarsi, toes, and toes. Cool. So this is the space for it. Then I want the handiness. Cool. Oh, so this is giving me the handiness for something, doing some work. Okay, so it's compensating for the seat. Yeah, we're still cool. So this is a child of the handiness, but it's also getting some work in between to probably negate. Yeah, because this is going for the handiness fix. So we're still cool. This is our global space fixed, and under that we're gonna get all of our controls. Then that should go out to our joints, which are kind of representing most of the work for our mechanics. Then this is the buffer, which is gonna get affected by something else. At this point, they're probably the rest. Yes, very good. So this tarsi angle, tarsi length, and toe angle and toe length, some of these are gonna be at rest. Some of these might need moving to another panel for clarity. But the basic idea is all correct. So this is the handiness, which has been done. Okay. So this handiness sign here is because we want this component to be able to work with or without the negation. So if you do that, you know, it basically manipulates one way. If you do that, it manipulates the other. So that makes our, that is basically what makes our, I can do it, our read guidable in its inversion. So condition on, condition off. So actually we did it in the guide, which is even cooler. So if you do condition off, you'll pick the 1. If you do condition in these parameters, if you turn it on, so this is an if node, it will pick the -1, which is negated. So the other one will be non-negated. So this is the complement of the blend, because the blend goes one way, as in, sorry, the FKIK blend goes one way, but the value, Maya uses weights, which means that you want the straight blend is, if you have 2 weights, you want the straight blend increasing 1, while 1 minus the blend, which is the complement of it, decreases the other way around, so you get the right crossover. So this is still all making sense. And that blend, I expect it to be between something like 0 or the default angles, and nothing else or whatever. So blend component -1, input A, input B. So let me see, I don't want to lie here. So this is as input A and input B. So this might be one of those things where the guide is actually doing work. You know what? What I really should be doing after all of this work is actually pinning all of this work and saving all of this work. So somebody in chat was saying, not to be a heathen or anything, but this whole working with a meter rig for the puppet rig, is that a lot of work that might not always be reused for the next rig? It's not necessary work. I mean, you can... Yeah, absolutely. If you're not going to reuse stuff, don't spend time making it reusable. That would be super dumb. You're not a heathen. I'm showing how to do it, because I know that a lot of people want reusable components, and the way it's often done is by doing stuff like scripts that create scripts, which I am not super fond of. Because it's kind of dumb, whereas I like to have components that I can literally just import as a file and move stuff around and they work, and that's it. And if I want to connect them together, I grab something called output for the dominant components and input for the one that I am trying to link as a, you know, slave behavior to something else, and just connect a bunch of plugs and be done with it. It is a lot of additional work. it can also force you into making your Grassford rigs slightly more complicated than they should be. So it can sometimes, you know, this versatility can come at the cost of a little bit of performance, though very little in my experience. And if you start taking it very seriously as part of your workflow, you can actually optimize it away really well. But with all that said, that's why I think that it's worth teaching, and that's why I show it. Um, it is far from being something that you always want to do, and it is very far from being something that, you know, is the only way to go about it. It's just something that I've never seen anybody else do, or at least show, and so I thought I'd share it. That's pretty much the whole thing about the guides. I think it's a cool trick to have in your box of tools, but yeah, it's don't think this is prescriptive workflow. So this looks to be in decent shape to me. I will say once you get used to it, it's not that much additional work for rigs of a certain complexity. Ironically speaking, if your rig is very simple, guiding it is gonna cost you a ton in relationship to how much the base cost of the rig itself will be. When the rigs become complicated and get torn apart a lot, when you look at how much insight it gives you into the rig and all of that, I think it almost entirely pays for itself. So I find guidable components in terms of reuse and resilience are worth the price. They come out as positive value, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I am happy with these. Now the last thing I would like to do is making sure that the whole guiding, de-guiding thing works. So I have saved, but I'm gonna paranoidally, whatever, save again now. This works. This works. Any configures are full. That is great. This is the working. So there might be guiding to the foot, and I think we support the multi-select. We save, so we can always revert. So by selecting these, I'm buying into the leg global. By selecting these, I am buying, actually let me select the locator, because I think we say select stuff in the guides. I don't remember the script itself, but can't hurt to select something in the guide to be guide, right? By selecting these, we're buying into the God node component. We bought into the leg global. So well, I mean, any control should be doing. So I'm gonna select the control for the foot and gonna swap. Cannot find procedure. Oh, because we crashed. Because that's joyous. So loading the plugin. Plugin loaded. Cool. So if I swap and I undo the swap and I redo the swap, I haven't crashed, which is, you know, it's a good starting point. Not hard crashing on your scripts. Usually a good start. Now I expect that if I move these, the app vector follows, like it very much. That seems good to me. If I do that, you know, that works. We'll see if it affects the leg, but and if I do that, that I don't like, because this is still affecting. There's some stuff where we're not, like, you need to delete the guide to have the full effect. So let me check before, because in it, like, I would expect this one in example to have been the guide. So there's some stuff where either I've undone too much, or it's only working on one thing at a time. Some stuff you need to delete the guide for. Okay, so I might not have unguided the thing, to be honest. So if I select that and I go swap. Okay, so now this is not guiding the foot, but this needs de-guiding. So maybe it doesn't work. Okay, so it's now de-guided. So maybe, I don't know, I undid twice. And now that's not moving the up vector anymore. So this is still moving the God node. Maybe it doesn't work with multi-select. I'm not gonna care all that much about it just yet. So it's possible that de-guiding the God node requires that we delete the guide, because it's so simple that I might have decided to rely on the hierarchy deletion without complicating, adding plugs, undo move, select guide, swap and remove. So no, I probably didn't click hard enough. Did I click hard enough now? Yeah, I did. And it's not doing anything. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not too concerned because the behavior is still good. Now, there's a very dangerous thing that we're going to do next, which is to see if it swaps back in correctly. Swap that back in. I did see something changing in the graph. Swap these back in. Probably didn't swap it hard enough or whatever. I might be messing things. I might not be. Okay. Messing things up, I was about to say. All right. I'm going to save a new version for this one because I don't know for sure whether I've done damage or not. But I reckon we're getting pretty close to saving a scene. All right. I'm going to call it because God node, leg global, and foot seems like good going for a day. Only one crash and right after we saved. Not doing too bad. Do we have any other questions? Chat is quiet. I'm gonna give it a minute, and if not, I'm gonna call it. So this is, yeah, that felt pretty natural all in all. So insofar I'm not displeased, because what is happening is that I brought in geometry. The way you want the guidable rig to actually feel, the look and feel and the manipulation feel and all of that, is that you bring geometry and you start moving stuff around and things kind of fall into place where you go, okay, this was pretty natural. I didn't spend time finding the guides or, you know, and I was like reacquainting myself with the rig as well in the process. So insofar, I'd say, you know, this has got software design wise, it's got a positive quality, which is that the feel of how it works seems correct. We don't seem to have broken anything. So what I'm probably gonna do is finish laying these out for these, then try, despite the fact that I had already done it, I'm gonna try and export the components and re-import them again for the other side. Yeah, cheers, man. Yeah, someone was saying nice stream. Good to see you still going after so long. Yeah, for the record, it's I still love doing these. I mean, I really like it. The problem is that my daughter's hours now, like, straight up conflict with my streaming, with my best streaming times. That, and I embarked on entirely two large Patreon projects inadvertently. So, all right, we're gonna call it. Cool. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, everybody, for keeping me company on Twitch. If you're watching these on YouTube, thanks for watching. And I might do another stream in a couple of days. But in the meantime, Happy New Year, everybody. Like, we're really close. Like, it's just a few hours away for us here in Australia. All right. Have a great day. Have a great night, everybody. And I will see you soon.